You ever been to a press conference and you see one of the athletes? They grab the microphone, right? They finally get asked a question. They grab the microphone and they say, I don't do my talking here. I do my talking in the ring. It could be boxing, it could be MMA, wherever you saw a press conference. I don't do my talking here. I do my talking on Saturday night. I do my talking in the ring. Have you heard this? Sure, yeah, of course you have. Okay. Now, I want you to think of a star anywhere in your life. You can go back as far as you want. You've been with this sport since 1993. Go back to 1993. But think of a big draw, a meaningful player. And now marry that press conference with the meaningful player. Because you've heard it plenty of times at plenty of press conferences. Have you ever heard somebody that was a star or turned out to be a star say those words? No, you haven't. You've never been to a press conference where somebody who later, I don't even mean that, later at some point in their career went on to be the pay-per-view main event, but previously said, I do my talking in the ring or in the octagon. You've never seen that. The moment those words come out of their mouth, right? Now, this isn't literal. Attempted to prove a point, but the executives in charge take out their notepad and they jot that down. If somebody tells you who they are, believe them. And if you put on a press conference and you flew somebody in and you sat them there and they knew there'd be no punches or kicks, they knew there would only be their words into a microphone, and what they showed up with is, I have nothing to say, and they will actually say that to you. My statement is, I have no statement, thank you. And they put it down. You make a little note to make sure that you don't bring them back at a press conference. And the easiest way to make sure that they don't return to the press conference is to keep them out of the main event. And it's an important detail that you have. Believe me, this sport is happening all around us, and the right answers will never be given to you. If you were to pull one of the bosses aside right now, right after you watch my piece, you pull him aside and go, hey, Chael was saying, I said, man, no, come on, don't listen to that. As long as you can fight, it's all I care about. So right there, you'll take that and you'll run with it. And then your career will be over and you'll look back and go, man, that thing that Chael said about nobody ever said I have nothing to say at a press conference and was invited back to a press conference. Boy, that sure turned out to be true. Vince McMahon used to bring the guys out to his house. He'd sit them down and be out by the pool. And he would tell them his plan. But before he would tell them, I'm going to put the belt on you. I'm going to make you the champion. You're going to carry the torch of this whole organization. He would talk to them first. He'd want to hear what they had to say. And so many times with fighters, when they're put into that moment, they'll talk about their trainer. They'll talk about their left hand. They'll talk about I can beat up everybody. They'll talk about I'm willing to fight. There's certain things that they will say. They're very boilerplate. They don't know they don't know why these questions are being asked. They don't know what the other person is listening for. And we end up in very interesting spots, and we keep on coming back to it. And it seems like, we just keep getting in the same car and crashing into the exact same wall and can't figure out why it's happening to us and why it is not happening to the other guys. And I'm looking at the pay-per-view coming up this weekend. I love it. Oh my goodness, this thing is stacked. This thing was a good card to start with, and then it got better. Like, just for example, but the Ian Garry fight versus Jeff Neal was scheduled for next month in Miami. They pulled it off Miami, stuck it here in California, inserted Dustin Poirier versus Denise into the Miami card, right? Which strengthened, both cards just got a whole lot better. But I bring that to you because I haven't heard a word from Jeff Neal, and I do mean not one. I had an argument 2 days ago that this fight was even on this card. I saw when it was announced for Miami. But I actually argued with my production team when they told me, hey, Chael, you talk about Garry versus Jeff Neal. It's this weekend. I said, no, it's not. It's in Miami. And I have heard from Ian Garry. I didn't have that specific detail, but just by example, when he and Rampage got into a back and forth, that was very good stuff. That was headline worthy. Ian Garry's always got a little something going. I enjoy it and I appreciate it. I can't remember the last time I heard from Jeff Neal. And I wouldn't care if it was a Rampage, if it had nothing to do with this fight. I can't remember the last time I heard from him. And I'm not putting Neil down. By the way, Neil's a fantastic fighter. He's a very handsome guy. He understands the point in standing out. I've seen him behind the scenes before. He's got cool glasses and cool jackets and shirts. He's trying to do his part. But where does he go with a victory? And go ahead and fill that in. I know that you don't know, but just kind of guess. What's realistic? Where would Neil go with a victory? And if I was to just ask you the exact same question, which is the only other option of the fight, where does Garry go with a victory? Those are our only two options. We don't have to look behind door 3. There is no door 3. Neil wins or Garry wins. And you would have a wildly different answer. If you were discussing Ian Garry with a win, you would discuss everything including world title fight. World title fight on down would come out of your mouth. Well, how could he possibly get a world title fight? How? But Neil, if Neil beats him, can't. If Neil proves he's better than him, better than the guy that you just got done arguing, could go all the way to the top of the docket. How? Can you not also argue that for Neil? But you didn't. You didn't in that little hypothetical that I just gave you. You didn't. And they are vastly different. Who is going to be given those opportunities? Well, what did you do the last time I gave you an opportunity? How far did you drive this? Who did you bring in? How many people did you let know the 5 W's? Who, what, when, why, and where? I keep staring at the card. I'm looking at that card. I see Whitaker versus Paulo Costa pops off the page. What a fight. Oh my goodness. It is very unlikely that you were the same coming out of that as you are going in. That is the bludgeoning of a lifetime. If there has ever been a cage match that has the right to be called a fight as opposed to a sport, it's these two. That fight is awesome. That fight on a poster is awesome. The way that's going to look when those two finally leave that locker room, it's almost hard to imagine that we're even going to be able to get there. That's got #1 contendership in my mind written all over it. And more than anything, right, and this is always a bad promoter's miss. The bad promoter, what happens with a win? The bad promoter doesn't consider what happens with a loss. And see, that's where you have your really big fights. Somebody gets a big bounce, maybe a title fight, but somebody else, and in this case, they will never be discussed for a title fight again. That is the stakes in this fight. It's huge. And it's another one where I go and look at the card and I go, well, that part of the story hasn't been told by these athletes. I look at Henry versus Dishlavili. I look at the greatest wrestler under contract versus the greatest MMA wrestler under contract. Title shots for both guys, possible retirement for one of them. Like, the stakes could not be bigger. And that's always a confusion within the math of a promoter, particularly a new one. How good is tonight? We're playing checkers, we're never playing chess. When you finally get a chess piece, okay, great. After tonight, what can I do with it? They don't understand. A big fight has a big disparity. That's what a big fight is. It's a huge gap from the crater you fall into if you have defeat to the mountaintop you go to if you have victory. That's what a big fight is. And I'm staring at this card, and it's awesome. And these stories are everywhere. But who's going to do what when this is done has a large part to do with who can I count on? Who helped me tonight? I'm going to assume with victory and with opportunity, you're going to do the same thing that you have been doing. Very hard to count on a guy that can't get out any of the 5 W's, who, what, when, why, and where. So take it from me, whether the fighters have told you or not. Jeff Neal is fighting this weekend. That's true. I realize he hasn't told you, but he is. Robert Whitaker is fighting this weekend. I realize he has not told you, but it's true. Henry versus Dishlavili. The winner is likely to fight for the belt. The loser is likely to not fight again. Even though they haven't told you that, trust me, it's true.